Hey everybody, how you doing today? I am here today. Special treat. I have with me Katie Campbell. She is running for a seat in Halifax with the Communist Party of Canada in Nova Scotia. Katie, how are you doing today?
I am fine, and how are you today?
I got to tell you, Katie, I am still getting over that second dose. It's just absolutely, it makes you tired. It definitely
It
makes you
does
tired.
make you
It does that.
tired.
But you know what else
Yes,
would
it
make you
does.
tired? COVID, I suspect, would make you tired. So I
COVID.
will definitely take it.
Yes, yes.
So, Katie, how long have you been part of the Communist Party of Canada?
I have been officially a member of the Communist Party of Canada for 2 years.
2 years. Excellent. And why did you decide to join the Communist Party of Canada?
Well, I think, like many people, I spent a lot of time trying to work within what the so-called mainstream options to make change. And At some point, you just have to step back from that. They are not going to give you socialism. It is not going to happen within that capitalist framework. And I think I'm not alone in realizing that. I've seen a lot of people in the knocking doors and talking to people. They're on the same page, and particularly people that have been putting a lot of time in with the so-called left-wing mainstream party, who I don't feel we should name, but we know who that is. Um, and and what they also came to realize is that they are not going to get socialism within that party either. All of the liberal, conservative, and NDP party are in the end capitalist, and they want to work within that framework, and they'll go gently to take little steps towards this solution or that solution, and people are tired of it. So that's the long story of how I got to where I am today. You think I forgot that, but I did not.
uh, uh, you've said several times here that you're not going to get socialism. So can you be a bit more
I said
specific?
what?
You've said a couple of times there that these parties are not going to deliver socialism, right?
No.
So what exactly does that mean to you? What does it mean to be delivering socialism or to get into a system that is not capitalist?
Well, the simplest way to put that is that if you want to get out of capitalism and into socialism as an economic framework and a social framework, you have to start to begin to recognize the for-profit element that is at work today in everything we do. In our healthcare, that is being sliced and diminished, in the housing costs that are going up while our paychecks remain low. Those are all for-profit elements that are working to squeeze everything they can out of us socially, us collectively. And so I think the simplest way to look at it and to understand it is to say that is the for-profit mode. To get out of that, you have to begin to reject the notion that there is no other way to, for example, address climate change. If you think about climate change in the past 30 years, people have been warning and demanding change, then begging for change, and nothing happens because the worst offenders in the climate change are making money. And how can you think that within capitalism, you can go to them and say, we want you to stop making money because we're concerned? It hasn't happened. And at the same time, we have government that has been conflicted by their associations with for-profit, with capitalists, and they don't want to make those hard decisions either, because their bread and butter comes from that side of their program. So I think that, you know, if people want to look at what socialism is, it is a way of living that respects people and understands their needs and works to get their needs met. Housing, education, climate, healthcare, just everyday things that we need and should have and can have. That's it.
So, Katie,
Yeah.
why not simply join a party such as the NDP and attempt to push it to the left? Why does Canada need a separate party that's focusing on these issues that you're bringing up?
Because the NDP is not left. Whatever your dream was 30 years ago of elect the NDP, it is not that today. And I think that if NDPers are honest with themselves, they know this. And I think that there is a problem within the NDP in how they're going to go forward, because 30 years is a long time to be waiting and to be faithful and to be trying to get some things done. Younger people coming up have no time for that. They're in a different headspace and they're living a different life and they have a different perspective. So I think that's the simplest answer. The NDP is not left. Communist Party is left, and socialists, heart and soul, bread and roses.
So as I move forward, it's good to remind you now, Katie, that I myself am a communist. And so these questions are in good faith, as I say, but we are communists. And so I figure we've got to deal with these issues. So what do you say to people who say, well, haven't communists done bad things? Hasn't communism failed in the past? Why should we support communism now?
Well, I think that when I hear those questions, and there are a number of questions that come up regularly, and I think one of the things I have to say honestly is go do your homework, because a lot of that comes out of an ignorant repetition of lies and half-truths. It comes out of a part of that Cold War brainwashing. So what I want to say here, that is my answer. But what I want to tell you is that in knocking doors and in being out and about it during this election, we noticed that in the younger folks, 30, 35 and below, they understand that. When you talk to an older demographic, well, you still have to get past some of that old stuff. But the younger folk they're doing their readings, they're doing their homework, they're doing their research, and when you meet them and talk to them, they're already there. It's pretty amazing. And this is independently. They're doing independent study and research. So that my answer is go do your homework and find out the actual story. And it is complex. You know, there's a complex history there.
Well, and I always like to say that it's a little bit like the reefer madness narrative, right? Like we were always told that marijuana was this evil thing, and there was this movie, Reefer Madness.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you encounter some of these anti-communist folks, and you're a bit like, hey man, stop watching Reefer Madness, you know, like it's a touch, yeah, as you say, maybe do your homework on this.
Yeah.
So why is it though, it seems that in this federal election, Katie, just when Canada needs to be turning to the left, even if it was towards an NDP kind of Keynesian economy, but just as we're turning left, it seems as though Canadians are more interested in dabbling with the right. You have the rise of the PPC recently, as well as the recent rise of Aaron O'Toole's Conservatives. Why do you think that this is the case?
Well, I think that is a question that has many different elements to it. And I think one of the things that people have to remember, and again, it is more an older demographic, when they talk about voting conservative, they think they're voting for the old-timey Conservative Party, and they're not. These guys are a different breed, and they're libertarians through and through. And people need to go and read up on that. What is libertarian? And when you read up on it and you understand it, it is everything we don't need. So that's one part of an answer. And I think that the other thing, the other aspect to that is that people have been swinging back and forth. They're, among the three mainstream parties, but mostly the two, the Liberal and Conservative, and they go back and forth and back and forth. And, and so what happens is that it's out of frustration. It's out of a lack of really taking the time to sit and think about where you want your vote to go that will really make a difference in the future. So more still answering the question is that people they know, I think, at some level, the NDP is not a lefty party. They're not socialists. They're some kind of a mix of stuff. And the problem that is important to recognize and acknowledge in our media landscape today, we have corporate media that is running a huge element, and they keep the news and the information in a very narrow band that serves their purpose. We have CBC, our national publicly funded news and radio, and they are excluding parties because they have a very narrow interest and a concern, and this is hurting people. And it's the same with newspapers, with radio, with public broadcasting. And what happens is that you lose a vigorous conversation that covers a lot of ground, and people start to think the only options they do have are the liberals and conservatives, and maybe in a pinch the NDP. And so for the Communist Party of Canada, you look at that. How do you break through? How do you get out of that trap that has been set in media? And it's a serious question. And why is it serious? Because an open and free media is one of the pillars of democracy. And we are staggering under the lack of that open media and news as a source for the general population.
Now, along that line, I actually have written down here a question. Because we are communists, and there is a history of McCarthyism that occurs throughout Western history, are you at all concerned about the rise of something similar in this digital age of YouTube and Facebook and all of this sort of stuff?
Well, so for me, the rise of the right and the the rise of a kind of new violence on social media is tied to capitalism, and it is the the old story of othering. And you start othering people because you're afraid, or you're told to be afraid, or you think that's the solution. In any kind of white supremacy or fascism or far-right ideology, you need a scapegoat. And again, this is homework for people. Go and read about that. It's one of the first things that happens, that you find your scapegoat. And so in terms of the Communist Party of Canada, I think the communists right now are doing amazingly well. As I said earlier, I think there is a new generation coming that has no time for that nonsense. They see past it. They're well read. They're articulate. And so then that leaves a certain conversation about the masses. But could it rise again? Of course. You see it all the time. Should it? No, it should not. Will it? If my feelings are correct about the next generation coming, it won't happen.
That's very hopeful. I'm rather fond to hear that from fellow communists who have their feet on the ground and are going about. So, Katie, for you, what does victory look like for you, or perhaps the Communist Party of Canada, in this election?
I didn't get the first part. What does
What does victory look like
for
you and your party in this particular election?
Well, so I think that's an interesting question. And so the first thing I would like to say is that, would I like to win, me personally? So we'll talk. Of course I would. I think that would be the greatest kick to get things going. It would be fabulous beyond words. Will that happen? It's unlikely. We haven't been able to. We've got momentum. We certainly do, but the mass momentum that is needed to do that, maybe not this time. As the younger kids are coming up, that generation, I think it's coming. So what it would look like to me is to get enough votes in that it rattles some cages in some very right corners. I think that would be, and I think it would help people. Honestly, even if we didn't get in here in Halifax, if we got the numbers that made people sit up and take notice, it is going to push things left. You can't ignore that. So for me, there's a win-win, kind of a scenario that I see for that. Nationally, I think that the people running in other provinces are seeing generally the same kind of thing. There's a younger generation coming that is that they've got nothing left to lose. It's the perfect scenario for actual change.
All you have to lose is your chains. That kind of thinking. So I have noticed, as I've done my own independent research on the communist movements throughout Canada, is that there are several communist parties that have been cropping up. So Vote Communist is one that I've noticed around Marxist organizations and this, that, and the other thing. Is there any talk within parties, and I don't know that you would know any of this or if you're involved in any of this, but it's worth asking. Is there any conversation between, say, the Communist Party of Canada and an organization like, say, Vote Communist or Marxist.ca in some kind of integration or some kind of merging or some kind of coming together to form a singular Communist Party of Canada?
Well, that's a very old and touchy subject, and I think that I can't really speak for the Communist Party of Canada, because that is not a thing that has been up for discussion. But what I can say for my own feelings on that, one of the most important things that happens today and has been happening is the fracturing of the left. The left is so fractured and so at times bitter towards one another. It is impossible to have that conversation. And my feeling is that if we united as the left, keep whatever jacket or cap that you want, but unite. And we could walk together for 10 years and not have to address any of those. There's so much work to be done. There's so much that could be accomplished. You wouldn't have to have those hard conversations for 10 years and maybe more. And when you get there, then you work through those things. As long as the left is fractured into this type of small and big differences, it's divide and conquer. So that is my personal feeling on that. And I know some people just have small seizures when I say that, but it's what I believe. Well, the left absolutely has to work together to go forward. Yeah.
That flows completely into how I view what's happening across Canada as well. Like I see that, and it does seem to be like a fracturing along small line differences and sort of personal,
sometimes big
kind of tastes in this. And what I'm happy to report from here in Toronto is that it seems as though the leftists here are willing to start putting those small differences aside. So I work with an organization that considers itself Trotskyist. I myself actually quite fond of Stalin and all of this, and it's just, but it's like, so there's big problems that are in front of us, and as you say, we have common cause to sort of lay down those differences and move forward together. So
that is everything. If you want socialism to be an actual thing, that is everything to go forward. Yeah.
Well, Katie, I have run out of the questions that I have on the page here. So is there anything that you would like to kind of put into the atmosphere and let people know about?
I think just generally about my own campaign here, I did talk about a couple of little things. We have had in Halifax an incredible housing boom. It's actually astounding. And at the same time we have had this housing boom, we have a housing crisis with more and more people ending up on the street. And it's the kind of thing that you look at it, it tells you everything right in those two events at the same time, tells you where we're at. There is a group here, Halifax Mutual Aid. They have done amazing work on resisting that and countering the lies and providing options for people that are unhoused. And I think that for me, that is one of the biggest issues here in Halifax. And the other thing is healthcare. That has been so underfunded. You have people on a waiting list for 5 years to get a family doctor. Now I don't know what that's like in Ontario. I don't even care. It's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. And I think it's another thing where that hasn't really been on any of the platforms in the federal election. Nobody's talking about it. And that should tell you it's up for private market. So I think, and again, students coming out of university with 50 and 180,000 in debt and no jobs or low-paying jobs. The craziness is it's there. We're right there, and it's why the younger generation is. They are not going to tolerate any more nonsense. I think they're very strong.
Well, you brought up the housing going on in Halifax, which has become a national issue, frankly.
Yes, it
Every
is.
city seems to be experiencing
Yes.
some kind of ridiculous housing.
Yes.
All of the major parties have essentially said that the solution is to build more housing. And of course, I point out, well, you could build as much housing as you'd like. There are billionaires in the market, and they'll buy that housing up. So I don't see that as a valid solution. What would you think is a solution to this housing crisis?
Well, the Communist Party of Canada has a good solution on that. So the mainstream parties talk about building 1 million units of affordable of housing, 1 million units of housing, and what you see in that is they don't describe what kind of housing, what's affordable, who is the housing for, is it a PPP project, public-private. It's a mess. And again, this is the disingenuous politicking that goes on, so our party says build 1 million new homes, but all of them social housing. No one pays more than 20% of their income for that housing. 1 million units. And we also say housing is a right. People have a right to housing, to nice housing, a nice home. And so that is another thing that the party would deliver on as part of socialism. And I think too, you have to, when you look at how to go ahead and do that, in getting the for-profit element out, you have to nationalize housing, and it becomes a public utility, and you get that element out. And you still have to make enough money to do your repairs and keep things in shape, but you take that huge for-profit and you get rid of it. And voila, affordable housing. It's that easy.
And that's something that I think is what you just said there. It's that easy. It's funny because people talk about this communism and these ideas that we're having as if they're strange or foreign to Canada. But throughout the 60s and 70s, and even in the early 80s, we were doing exactly what you were suggesting, that many of our industries were nationalized. Our oil and our energy industry used to be nationalized. So this idea that we can't have these things be nationalized is a bit silly to me.
Yes.
So, Katie, if someone wanted to get involved with the Communist Party of Canada, or if they wanted to support the Communist Party of Canada, where should they go and what should they do?
So I am glad you asked that question, because part of the win-win of running for election at this time is to get new members, to get volunteers through the door, to get members through the door, and donations through the door. And if you want to volunteer, to join, or do any of those things, we do have a website during the election, www.votecommunist.com. And under there, they have our platforms there, but we have a page that has donations, and you can join and you can volunteer. But also at the Communist Party of Canada.ca, I have to check that actual, they have also a place where you can go and do some readings. You can go and join, and they will send you to your, you see what I'm doing here?
It's the age of technology, we have these things at our fingertips, and so we don't need them in our brains.
Yeah, so it's communist-party.ca.
Perfect.
And on there, you can join the party there as well. So, and I think, again, it's just Google it and find out how to find us. And I think that is part of the, you asked about a metric for success. That is also a thing that I didn't say at the time, but that is one of the metrics of success for us, is growing and expanding. And I hope next time we have twice as many candidates. Wouldn't that be fabulous?
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be
Wouldn't
nice?
it be nice?
So Katie, as we're wrapping up here, is there anything that you'd like to finish up with? I'm going to give you the final word.
No, I think I just that as okay, let me say it this way. With socialism and by supporting communists in Canada, Communist Party, it is an actual concrete and material way that you can change your life. That's it.
Perfect. Well, Katie, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to putting this up and sending it out in the world. Good luck in the election. Good luck as you're growing. I'm rooting for you, Katie.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the interview. Take care.